Hi, welcome back to the Spirit's Path. This is D, and today's tarot card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot deck is the Queen of Stones and the Bear. And we've seen her come up a lot lately. With that, it came up before you crossed over, into the other part of the Wildwood Forest. So, with her showing back up in this reading, all right, that's telling me that, her work here is not done. Okay. Now, she's the symbolicness of this card is that she's protector of the land. All right. The thing that really stands out to me right now, since you've crossed over, is now you've got a power couple. The King of Stones and the Queen of Stones in this reading within 7 days. And very rarely does that come up, in this process. So what does that mean, Dwayne? What does that mean, D? Okay, with the King of Stones, he's on that rock. He's during that winter time, and he's the protector of the, he's a protector of the land. Okay, but he's the guardian of the dead on their journey to the underworld. But he rules that financial kingdom. He's a great advisor. Okay, the Queen is a protector of the land. She rules the castle. And she's a great nurturer. Both having to do with materialism, security, and stability. One advises on how to get more of it. And she listens to her king, and she gets very protective of what she has in her castle. The people that are in there, everything that they do, all right? And she's protective of what her king has gathered. Right? And yesterday's card was the Seven of Bows, clearance. So, we talked about clearing things out mentally, physically, within the house, attitude-wise, in a job situation. All right, she's going to show you the practical way of doing that and still hold on to the luxury items that you like. And luxury items, may not be the BMW or anything like that. But it's the luxury items that you hold near and dear to your heart. Ones that, as you're going through clearing out that closet, clearing out that room in deep space, or not deep space, but to make space, okay, you're going to be looking at all the different things that are there. Some of it's going to be sentimental. Some of it's going to be, yeah, I can get rid of this right now, okay? But as you're going through that closet in that empty room, and maybe even your thought process, okay, you're discerning whether or not to let go of stuff or to hold on to them. And it all depends on what you want to clear out with that clearance card. If you clear out a little bit of stuff, there's going to be an opportunity for a little bit of stuff to come back in. That's going to be better. If you clear out a lot of stuff, there's going to be an opportunity for a lot of stuff that's much better for you to come through. Okay. Maybe you're holding on to stuff, from your grandparents, and only you know the meaning of it. Okay. Or maybe you're holding on to stuff that, your aunts and uncles would appreciate in their later lives, to remind them of their parents, which are your grandparents, right? So you could pass on some of that tradition to them. You could pass on that knowledge, okay, to your children, to your grandchildren, however you want to look at it. And be that lore keeper of, holding on to something, that's true to you, true to your heart, and true to your intuition, okay? And through that process of when you're going through mentally and looking at stuff, okay, you also come across, I need to do this in a wise way, okay? I need to do this in such a way that, okay, everybody's got a piece of it. I'm not going to get sentimental over it. I'm going to keep this as a business decision. I'm going to put this on, marketplace or, whatever. I'm gonna try and sell the most of it. Have a garage sale, right? And that way, now you're making a little bit of money with it, okay? And that way, you're saying, you know what? Grandma or grandpa, mom or dad, they would appreciate it if it went on to somebody else, and let those be traditional milestones and gifts and stuff like that for other people. And yes, it's hard to part with things, but if you do things wisely, and it makes things better. It makes things better for you because it helps remove some of that clutter out. It also gives you that feeling of somebody else needs something like this. Okay? And this could also be, handing down trinkets, to family members, to great-grandchildren. Hey, your grandfather had this knife, and it was given to your dad before he passed, or before you were born, and let's keep this moving forward within the family line. So a couple of questions that this queen asks is, what needs to be preserved? When you're clearing things out, what needs to be preserved? If you're moving into a new job, all right, you're going through new opportunities, new learning, something totally different than what you're used to. Are you holding on to old paradigms? Are you holding on to old mindsets, belief systems? Because whatever worked in one industry may not work in another. So you may have to push all that aside so you could be opening up yourself to new opportunities, to new learning things, and look at it from going from a manufacturing industry to retail. What works? What doesn't? Okay, what works in manufacturing? You can't replace work ethic. Work ethic is always going to be with you. All right, you can't replace the skill set. All right, but what you can do is apply that in a new aspect, but also maybe you have to be a little bit more dedicated to being on time, because you have to be out there in a retail environment to service the customer, whereas in a manufacturing standpoint, you're not out there servicing the customer, you're out there servicing the product. Okay, so you have to clear out those old limiting beliefs, those old mindsets. And once you do that, then you start getting these new skills coming in. And this is just an example, all right, of what needs to be, preserved. I can still preserve the work ethic. I can still preserve the skill set, but everything else out the window. How do you use that in a love relationship? Let's say you're in a new love relationship. You know what you don't want to do with this new love based on what's happened in the past. You get rid of those old mindsets. You get rid of those old beliefs. That way you can bring new love into your heart. You can bring new opportunities of doing things together that bring happiness to you. Okay? So that's where the Queen of Stones, she comes in with this nurturing attitude of saying, yes, I realize you have to clear out a lot to move forward. But in doing so, you're bringing in a lot. Once you clear something out, that space gets filled with more joy, more happiness. Increases your skill set, increases your resume, right, as you're moving forward. And the shaman is still sitting, he's walking with you. He's the one that asked this queen to come in. Let's show our spiritual journeyer what it means to clear things out. Mentally, physically, which takes care of the air and the earth, emotionally, which takes care of the water, and creativity, which takes care of the fire action. Because you're actively clearing that stuff out. You're burning the old stuff away. In the King of Stones and the Queen of Stone, they've had this conversation. The wolf and the bear had this conversation. And they're like, look, this is what needs to happen on this piece of the journey. Clear things out. Let it go. Okay? The king's looking at it going, where's life offering you its riches? And the queen says, so I can preserve things. Because the richness isn't in the stuff. The richness is in the memories. The richness is in the love. The richness is in that creative energy that's going on. And the Page of Bows is, still down here. Who's offering you that opportunity? Right now, that opportunity is being offered to you by the bear and the wolf and the shaman. They're all working in unison to help you move forward, to protect what needs to be protected, to show you the riches that you have without all this stuff in a room that you're not even using. Okay, the other question she asks is, where can you make space? When you start making space for that, other riches come in. Things that have meaning for you. Okay? Things that you can pass on to other generations. And, the king's going to look at that and say, the wolf, he's going to look at that and say, you know what? I support that. You are cleaning out this room to make it into a better sanctuary for your hobby. A podcast studio, right? A YouTube studio. That's working on your skill set. That's working on who you are. Not some stuff that's down there that, you've forgotten about, that's got lingering memories from people that moved on in spirit. When you are able to take that energy from the king and the queen of stones and use it productively going forward, you start expanding yourself. You start expanding your spiritual journey as you're moving forward. And then you start sharing it with others on the stuff that you've learned, passing down that knowledge, passing down that wisdom to make their journeys better. And in turn, you become this queen of stones. You become that king of stones, that advisor, that mentor as you're moving forward. So that's today's card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot deck, the Queen of Stones and Bear. Hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, share it with others, give me a thumbs up. And this is D for Spirit's Path. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. God bless. Stay safe, everybody.